Hey guys, Zach here, and welcome back to another action figure review, and today we'll be taking a look at the Jurassic World Legacy Collection Baby Tyrannosaurus. Now, when I first saw this figure at Toy Fair, or not really Toy Fair, but when this figure was announced, I was actually pretty excited because we're getting another figure of Junior from the Lost World, and I thought Junior was a pretty cool T-Rex. He wasn't as cool as Roberta, but I still think that he was, pretty cool. That, and he was the first baby Tyrannosaurus we've ever seen in the film franchise, and maybe not the last, but he might also be the last as well. But yeah, and when I heard that we were getting another, figure of Junior, I thought it was pretty cool. The figure came out. At first, I didn't mind how it looked, but after holding it in hand and after, looking at it for longer, I shortly became not too much of a big fan of this figure, so yeah. Before we take a look at the figure itself, we'll take a quick look at the muzzle that he comes with. And the muzzle here looks alright. It's just a solid gray piece, so there's not a lot of paint or articulation for that matter. The sculpting looks nice, but there's not a lot in terms of detailing, so yeah. Not going to go into too much detail with this, so I'm just going to put that to the side for now. Now for Junior himself, and of course Junior was the baby Tyrannosaurus in the Lost World. And the painting on this figure is, well, the painting isn't bad. Everything looks nice and, organized. Nothing's really sloppy here. But I'm not really a big fan of the choice of colors. I get that they kind of wanted something eye-popping for kids. And again, I understand that, and I know that this is, a kid's toy, but I feel like the paint could have been something else. Maybe like a darker color. I feel like it would have been nice. I'm not opposed to it being green, but like, in my opinion, the colors here are just a little too bright, so yeah. So as you can see, most of the body is a bright shade of green with a darker shade of green, almost blue sort of coloring going down the body. Going to the eyes. The eyes are painted yellow with black pupils, and we do get some black around the eyes, which does look nice. The teeth, unfortunately, aren't painted the best. Yeah. They look kind of sloppy, especially the bottom jaw there, as you can see. A lot of the coloring for the teeth kind of bleeds into the bottom jaw, but the inside of the mouth is painted a pinkish color, which does have a glossy finish to it, which does look nice. The underside of the figure, we have a very, very subtle, but we have a slightly brighter shade of green, which looks nice. And of course, we have the scan code, and we have the new Jurassic World logo right here. So, yeah. And that is pretty much it for the painting on this figure. And the painting on this figure, everything looks well organized except for the teeth, but I feel like a different color would have been nice. Not bad, but could have been better. But the painting on this figure, I'd say gets 3/4 of a pass. Again, everything looks nice. It's just the choice of coloring, not really to my liking, but yeah. Anyway, now we'll take a look at the articulation, and the articulation on this figure is actually pretty good, and, well, it's actually pretty basic compared to the other figures in the set. Very similar, so again, the arms can move 360 and outwards. So, yeah. The legs can move backwards this much and forwards this much, but the legs are very tight for some reason. I don't know why. I guess I kind of get why, but with some of Mattel's figures, there's some ratchet joints in here, and it's very tight. But I digress. But if you push down the tail right here, then the Junior here, of course, can close his mouth, like so, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not opposed to this gimmick, but to be completely honest, I feel like it would have been better if the mouth started off closed, but then you push down the tail and the mouth just opened up. So, yeah. But that's just me. And because I didn't show this off earlier, what you do is you take the muzzle, push down the tail, and put it on like so. Very simple. So, yeah. And it can just come right off. So, yeah. And that's pretty much it for the articulation on this figure. And comparing it to other figures in this line, it's what you would expect. Nothing crazy, so yeah. The articulation, not bad, so it gets a pass. Now I'll take a look at the sculpt, and the sculpting on this figure, at first glance, looks very nice. I actually really like how this looks. This is actually a very skinny figure, which makes sense because, of course, it's a baby, so it's not going to be, as muscular as an adult. And I just like how thin it is, because it was like that in the Lost World, and I like how they kind of left this Tyrannosaur very skinny and very, you know, not built at all. So, yeah, I think that looks very nice. And something else I really like about the sculpt, the feet aren't really aggressively stanced. This figure is just neutral standing. And that's actually one thing this figure has over the original Kenner figure of Junior. That figure was a good figure, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of, you know, almost aggressively stanced. Where here, this figure is standing neutrally. And yeah, one is more, you know, in front of the other, but, you know, it still stands fairly nicely. And it's unfortunate because there are actually a lot of figures in this line that do suffer from that problem, the aggressive stanced pose. And a lot of theropods suffer from this, and they suffer so bad they can't really stand, at least without a stand, which is kind of a bad design choice, but that's just me. But yeah, no, the legs, you know, not aggressively stanced, they look nice. The sculpting here looks nice. Everything here looks good. Until you get to the head. The head, to me, looks a little off. There are minor things that are just a little off, but it still looks nice. It still looks like, you know, a baby Tyrannosaurus. It's just, when the mouth is closed, he has a major underbite. And that is honestly pretty poor design. I don't know if it's just the bottom jaw being too long or the upper jaw being too short, but either way, that does not look pretty, and I'm not a big fan of how that looked. So, or how that looks, I should say. But, yeah. Other than that, the sculpting on this figure is actually very nice, so the sculpting here gets a pass. Now I'll take a look at the detailing, and the detailing isn't as nice as figures like the Pachycephalosaurus, but we do get some very nice detailing here as well. So let's take a closer look. So the detailing on the head here looks very nice. Very smooth, not a lot of creasing or scales or anything like that, but we do get more of that as we go down. The side of the body is actually detailed very nicely. We do almost get a little bit of a rib cage, which does look nice. And even the arms look nicely detailed as well, if my camera can focus. Unfortunately, the underside we have a giant seam, and even on the top right here, but yeah. The side of the leg is detailed nicely as well. We have some nice scaling and some nice musculature in the legs as well. And the scaling on the feet look good too. And going to the tail, we have more scales, more creasing, and more musculature underneath, which looks very nice. And that continues all throughout. And that's pretty much it for the detailing on this figure. And the detailing on this figure, again, not as nice as the Pachycephalosaurus, but still looks nice nonetheless. And that's pretty much it for this figure as a whole. So at the end of the day, should you get this? That's kind of hard for me, because there are a lot of good things about this figure, but then there are also some not so good things about this figure. So at the end of the day, I feel like if you already have the original Kenner Jr., then I feel like, you know, this figure, I feel like you could skip this figure, but if you don't have this figure and you want this figure, then I'd say if you don't have the original Kenner Jr., then I'd say go for this, because this is not a bad figure, just a little disappointing. So, yeah. In terms of price, this figure, I believe, retailed for either 10 or 15 bucks, which honestly isn't bad. I've seen this figure go for 22 bucks, but I've also seen this figure go for 15 bucks as well, so definitely go for the cheaper price. But if you want to know how big he is, here he is next to Dr. Billy Grant. And just like with the Pachycephalosaurus, I feel like Junior might be just a little too big, but he's not extremely huge, so I feel like that's nice. And something else that I actually forgot to point out, you technically still can get this figure. At Target now, there's a 2-pack between this figure that's slightly repainted and a Extreme Chomping T-Rex that I'll review later down the road, but an Extreme Chomping T-Rex that's actually in the paint scheme as the male Tyrannosaurus from the Lost World, Buck. So, yeah, so if you want this figure, I'd say you could go for that, because you're getting 2 figures, you know, in like 1 pack, so I guess that's cool, but yeah, as a whole, this figure itself is, it's alright. So, yeah. Anyway, that is it for today. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video. Peace. Zach out.